am I reading this for? So that you can see what's in it, basically. I can tell you, no, I really couldn't tell you because it's he says it in his own words better than I can tell you. So I'm picking out for you the most key kind of passages that you need for talking about the religious ideas and a work like this. Now, I was rushing along there on page 60 or so. And, that's pretty fast to go through 60 pages like you did. But I think with these things he's getting into now, and I'm going to have to leave him pretty soon. Don't go on to the next work we have to do for the end of this term. This picture of the dolphin, just like the goose earlier, the way he describes this dolphin, it's not just a dolphin, and he's looking at it in the tomb paintings. Now, there's some pictures here of the tomb paintings, and I don't know, I mean, there's lots of dolphins and things that you have here. One of these tombs we're going to get to, which is really interesting, is this tomb where, here's the tomb of the leopards, by the way, and there's a banqueting scene and so on, and dancing here with flutes and things. They figure 17 and 18, 19, 20, all dancing with flutes and stuff like that. And 21, 22, these figures. But one of these things on figure 24, which he talks about, which we'll get to, if you notice, along the rim there, now I don't want you to be angry at me for being frank, but there's a bull on the right side, and he's running at two figures there. Well, Lawrence tells you what this means. One man is buggering the other, to put it bluntly, and that's a no-no, and the bull therefore is saying no, he's against that kind of activity. And the other one, I think, is a normal sex act of some kind, what we would consider to be normal, I guess, and the bull is sitting quietly, not bothered about it there. So he interprets that. I'll get to that, but I just thought you'd like to know, since we're looking at the pictures here. That's where you really want to have the pictures. There's some boxing and scenes and so on. I see you all like that picture. You're all running and turning to it. Yeah, those are interesting. Yeah, pretty interesting. I don't know if I have some colored pictures of these things. These are all black and white. There's some colored pictures in this book here, I think. Let's see. Let me see if I can get that bull buggering thing here. Let's see. Here's dancing things. They're all browns and stuff and light colors of different kinds. Now I can't see anything here that would be anything. He describes it all pretty well, actually. So, yeah, that's it. Let's go back to the book. So, his description of the goose earlier, now the dolphin leaping. I mean, could anyone ever describe a dolphin like that? He's like the phallus carrying the fiery spark of procreation down into the wet darkness of the womb. And is he wrong? I don't know. I don't know what the dolphin means jumping in these pictures. But you see, he has a primitive sense in him. He seems to understand. One point, remember, he spoke about the rainbow, and so on. Yeah, right here. And the sea will give up her dead like dolphins leap out and have the rainbow within them. He wrote a novel called The Rainbow. And then you know what he meant in that novel. It's something about life. And he told you about the fish. And so you know he's right. Because how many Christian people, even if you're Christian, have been able to tell you why Jesus is the fish? Or is represented as the fish? Almost nobody can tell you why. And here he does it like chick-chack in one paragraph, doesn't he? So, I mean, this is a really intelligent fellow. And he talks about female power for whatever is laid over the shoulders as a sign of power added. And now he tells us about the auger. On page 62, one of the climaxes of the book, I think, 61, 62. You know, the future is frightening to most people. Most people have no basis upon which to act. You know, how do you know when you should go into Iraq or you shouldn't? Maybe you should have gone in 5 years ago and shouldn't have gone in that. The ancients used to go to the fortune tellers. You know, they say that Ronald Reagan's wife never let him go out of the house without calling her astrologist, or astrologer, as they call her, or astrologer, Nancy Reagan. She was like totally addicted to astrology. And Reagan, you know, the day he was shot, I guess she called the wrong astrologer. But in any event, you know, why not? Because how are you going to know whether you should act that day in a certain way or not? Action is due. How do you know it's going to succeed or fail? So, and really, to act is something, Shakespeare always had it in his plays. To be or not to be, you know, and so on. And he says there was a time when taking on its flood leads on to fortune. And meaning that there's another time which leads on to disaster. Take the Iraq War. If they had moved on to Baghdad in the first Iraq campaign, would have been easy, I'm sure. It would have led on to fortune if the first Bush hadn't stopped. He probably wouldn't have lost the election, and he probably would have had a great success in the Middle East. Instead, he listened to the people who were telling him that he should stop because they were Sunnis and they didn't want to remove Saddam and so on and so forth. So second Bush comes along. He knows, it worked on his father's campaign, he knows his father probably lost the next election because of that mess in Iraq after he stopped, and the Shiites being killed and the Kurds being killed and so on. So he determines to make good what his father didn't do. People say, well, how come he was so obsessed? You know, he lied about this. Of course he's going to lie about those things. He wants to do it because he wants to deal with the thing that made a fool of his father. But you see, there's a time when taking on its fortune leads on to success, and another time leads on to total failure. Well, he did it at the wrong time. 10 years had gone by. They had plenty of time to prepare. Al-Qaeda had come into existence and so on. It was a totally different time. So it goes into this mess that you see. That's the point. How do you know when to act? How do you know when you should act? It's not that these people are evil particularly. They're not doing it because they're nasty blue meanies like everyone wants to portray them. They're just making a decision that's misguided or something. And then they can't get out of it and they stick to it. They're like hard people. They're not hard people. They're just, you know, people with weaknesses. They're normal like most people. Everyone, it's easy to gainsay. So what I'm trying to say, the ancients went to these fortune tellers. So he explains to you how the augurs work. And look, it's as good a time for any. And I'll be honest with you. Having read this book in classes and things, when it came time for me to retire, I couldn't make up my mind. Should I put in retirement this year? Should I do it next year? So on and so forth. I was sitting down by the marina, like I told you, and I was watching these great blue herons. And there was a great blue heron on a big light post. And I said, if that heron flies over my head and lands on this other light post, I'll go up and put in my retirement papers today. If it doesn't, I won't, because it was the last day to put in the retirement papers. And sure enough, the heron flew over my head and landed on the light post on the other side. So I said, oh my God, it's an omen. You've got to go and do it. Right, that's exactly right. And it's because the heron flew over my head, you know, that I went and did it. There was no other reason whatsoever. I mean, why not next year, why not the year after? Okay, the heron flew over, I guess it's the right time, I'll do it this time. You know, that's the way it goes. So, well, I've been reading these books, so, you know, I was influenced by that. So, birds, here it is. Birds fly portentously on the walls of the tombs. The artist must have seen these priests, the augurs. The augurs are the priests who read the bird flights. It's called augury, and they're augurs. They read bird flight patterns. I see birds flying in the sky all the time, and I can understand why they would have thought maybe there's something to it. With their crooked bird-headed staffs out on a high place watching the flight of larks or pigeons. Now, nobody that I have ever read, whether you're interested or not, maybe not, has ever described this thing like he can do it. And he's just from a working-class coal mining family in central England. They were reading the signs and the portents, looking for indication how they should direct the course of some serious affair. To us it may seem foolish. Now here's the explanation. To them, hot-blooded birds, look at that sentence, hot-blooded birds flew through the living universe as feelings and premonitions fly through the breast of a man or a woman, if you like, or as thoughts fly through the mind. Well, that's really incredible. Now, that's not so important, it's not earth-shattering. But it really does describe what the thing is about. And he didn't read it in any book, he just knows, he intuits it. Hot-blooded birds fly through the living universe as feelings and premonitions fly through the breast or mind or thought of a man, or thoughts fly through the mind. And in their flight, the suddenly roused birds, or the steady, far-coming birds, move wrapped in a deeper consciousness in the complex destiny of all things. What page is this? 61? And look at that. And since all things corresponded in the ancient world, and man's bosom mirrored itself in the bosom of the sky, or vice versa, the birds were flying to a portentous goal in the man's breast who watched, as well as flying their own way in the bosom of the sky. If the augur could see the birds flying in his heart, then he would know which way to destiny was flying for him. Maybe George Bush Jr. should have gotten an augur instead of looking for WMD. You know, an augur would have done just as well, you see. Probably better, actually. You know, it's just a matter of decision-making and whether you're doing the right thing or not, etc. Because now his whole career, his whole presidency is ruined, or like in question anyway. If he pulls it out at the end, maybe it will be that way. But the point being that people are laughing and stuff like that. So this augury is really important. I mean, telling the future, giving you certainty to act. How do you know whether to marry this guy? How do you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these, should you buy that house or not? So you go look at the bird flights. And he tells it here. If the augur could see the birds flying in his heart, then he would know which way destiny too was flying for him. Well, that's it. So he tells it. He even says it. Look, augurs were as clever as our politicians, who also must practice divination. If ever they are to do anything worth the name, there's no other way when you are dealing with life. And if you live by the cosmos, that's his religion, you look in the cosmos for your clue. If you live by personal God, you pray to him. Okay, we go. The guys are dribbling the ball, cross themselves, trying to shoot a foul shot in the basketball game. Okay, they're living by a pattern, they want Jesus to help them get the ball in the basket. Okay, fine. But he says if you're living by the cosmos, then you should do it this other way. If you're living by, I'm going to get the birds to fly down these people's throats out here. I'm thinking if I get some of these bird flights going the right way. They scooted out. Look at them. Get their names. They crossed their names off and they got out while I was doing the door. God, is it that painful? Scoot out of here. I don't even know their names. They didn't even have to scoot. It wouldn't matter. Anyway, I wish I could know all your names. I apologize. Then he talks here about the haruspect. That's on page 62. today study the entrails of the sacrifice. It's all the same process, divination. He says it's divination. It all depends on true, sincere, religious concentration you bring to beat on your object. I bet you didn't know all this was in this book. So anyway, the Harrispex, and you and I both never even knew what the person who read livers was called a Harrispex, did we? Do I have it on the board there? Yep, there it is. To him the blood was conscious. He thought with his heart. To him the universe was alive and in quivering rapport. To him the blood was red and shining stream of consciousness. Hence to him the liver, that great organ. Here's the explanation. Where the blood struggles and overcomes death, was an object of profound mystery and significance. It stirred his soul. Look at how he describes it. You understand? I don't understand it. He does. So he gazed into the hot liver that was mapped out in fields and regions like the sky. It's in the river, and the liver has lines on it. Like the sky of stars, but these fields and regions were those of the red shining consciousness that runs through the whole animal creation. Therefore, it had to contain the answer to his blood's own question. It's the same with stars, and the study of stars, and the sky of stars. Whatever object will bring the consciousness into a state of pure attention. That's what divination is. Bringing the consciousness into a state of pure attention. And so on. Men juggle with prayer today, like I told you about the basketball guy who's going to cross himself before the group, that type of thing. As once they juggled with augury. And in the same way, some juggle with science. Some do it with impurity. Socrates, for instance, one of the first jugglers, juggled logic unpleasantly, he said. And I think something to be said about that. The Harrispex of the augur became jugglers. Anyway, you can read that yourself. So, really, the next is more about the painted tombs. I don't know if we really, there's anything more. Here's a good one. The Tomb of the Bulls. I told you I would tell you about that one. In this page, I think, I don't know what page this is in your book. What page are we up to? Painted tombs of Tarquinian. Anyway, he goes into some more tombs and he meets a German boy. You know what page that is? I have 115, but that couldn't be the right page in your book. 70, maybe it's about page, can't be page 70. Do you know what page it is in your book? Huh? Then we see the guy talking to a pale young fellow in old corduroy velveteen. He's a German guy who's a tourist. Can you see what page that is?
Is it in the painted tombs number 2 or the first one?
I think it's the second one. It's the
The
fourth,
second one
yeah,
starts
number
on
2.
115 for us.
Oh, okay, so 115 is right. How did it get up to 115?
All the pictures.
Oh, the pictures. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I got it listed, 115. Right, I got it here. Okay, so this is a very funny episode. This is a German sort of guy who's been to the university and he knows everything and he's, like a doctoral student. The young German tramps firmly on, but his spirit is not as firm as his tread. He'd been to Sicily and Tunis and other places in North Africa, and he just returned, and his comment is mehr schrei wie Wort. Do you know what that means, mehr schrei wie Wort? More noise than worth. Schrei is the German for crying out, noise, Wort is worth. You can understand the language. Mehr schrei wie Wort. Then, wie is then. He jerks out, speaking as if he were throwing his words away like a cigarette end he was sick of, doesn't think much of any place, doesn't think much of the Etruscans. Nicht viel wert, not much worth. Doesn't apparently think much of me. That's very funny. Nicht viel wert. He you like the way he paints these people. Well, I feel it's not my fault and try to bear up. I can tell he doesn't think much of him. My young man is not really so bad. He would even rather like to be made to believe in something. Page, I guess, I don't know what page we're at here. So they're passing a cemetery, and there's mauve, anemones, bits of verbena, many daisies, tufts of chamomile. Again, more flowers here. The vivid green headland of wheat. And then we get to a hidden tomb, and it's the tomb of Pornographica. There it is. Suddenly we turn, I guess it's page 120, is that right?
Yeah.
To a hidden tomb. The German boy knows very well. The guide hurries up, lights the acetylene lamp. I showed it to you. The dog slowly finds himself a place, flings himself down, and we sink down slowly again down in the Etruscan world. One of the most famous tombs at the far off end of the necropolis is the Tomb of the Bulls. It contained what the guy calls un po de pornographica. Pornographica. But a very little Lawrence had. A very little. A po de pornographica means what? A little bit of pornography. The guy says it has a un po in Italian is a little bit. A po di pornografico. And Lawrence is a very little bit. And he talks about the Tomb of the Bulls. When one has a man-faced bull, I should have told you about, charging at the po de pornographico. That is the one guy buggering the other. The other lying down serenely and looking with mysterious eyes into the room, his back turned calmly to the second bit of picture, which the guide says is not pornographico because it is a woman. So the guide knows the reason here. It's sort of pornographico with the other one. The young German smiles his sour expression. The picture has curious charm. What do you think it means? He asked the German. Ach, nothing. The man on the horse has come to the drinking trough to water his horse no more. And the man with the sword, ah, he is perhaps his enemy. And the black-faced lions, ah, nothing. Decorations, fountain. Below the picture are trees in which hang a garland and neckband. This is the rest of the picture there. The border pattern, instead of an egg and dart, has the sign of Venus, so-called cross between the darts, a ball surmounted by a little cross. And is that a symbol? Asked the German. Here, no, he says. Merely a decoration, which is perhaps true. Anyway, he goes on, and it's quite funny. The German keeps saying, nothing, it means nothing, all means nothing. And so to bring this somewhat to an end, if I can do so, my God, there's a lot of stuff here still, but I'll just do this last few pages here. So, I don't know what page is. The strange potency and beauty of these Etruscan things arise, it seems to me, from the profundity of the symbolic meaning the artist was more or less aware of. I don't think we need all that. Let's see. No. Well, I think with that picture of a po de pornographico, you can read the rest of this yourself. I don't see anything that I need to help you out with. So I think we can put Lawrence to bed. So now, any last things that we need to discuss about Lawrence that you are unclear about? Yeah. Well, he does it better than me. Much better than me. I don't know what the definition is. An augur is someone who looks at bird flights to tell the future. And he says that just as the birds fly through the hot universe, I don't know. They're like the thoughts flying through your mind or the premonitions in your heart. And if you can see which way the birds are flying, then you'll understand what's going on in your soul or something like that. And that's why I read Lawrence, because I can't tell as good as he can, and yet he can do it better than anyone I know. So. What else? Yeah.
Hair specs.
Hair specs. You know, in the old days, when they did sacrifice of animals, they would take the livers out, you know. Mel Gibson, wonderful, bloodthirsty Mel, is making a movie about Mexico, apparently, which is another one of his violent, brutal spectacles, where the people are going to be eating people's livers and doing all this horrible thing, and I guess he wants to get everyone into the movie so that they can be titillated by sadistic brutality. Yeah, ancient peoples, I guess in the Mexico areas, they did used to eat livers of their victims so that they could get their power in them or something. I don't know. That's what the Spanish propaganda said about them anyway. Whether the Spanish propaganda who brought the Inquisition to Mexico is true, I don't know. Wait a minute, I just need a wee sip of this hot juice here. One more and I'm done with it. Okay, so the liver, I've never seen really liver. Some of you are better cooks than me. You've probably seen it. Apparently it's got lines and everything on it. I guess it's the blood vessels. And in the liver, the blood is purified and renewed and so on. So he's saying that's where the blood is revived and becomes vivid again. And so it made sense to look at the liver, which was the sort of center of the blood of the living creature, and see which way the lines moved. And apparently all of them are different. So by reading these things, taking a hot thing and lifting it up and looking at it, they could make some intuitive prediction or advice or explanation that might help you in your life at that moment. That's what it is. But as I said, if I were you, I would read it in the book because the class is really more about the book than about me. And all I did, as I tried to tell you, is to try to midwife these things for you. Midwife Lawrence, midwife all these, James Baldwin, and so on. I couldn't do much with Malcolm X. We did that in Spike Lee. Okay. The next thing, the last thing I want to do in this class is The Chosen. This is a novel. I hope you've already read it over Thanksgiving or something, because you don't want to do all your work the very last week. You got enough papers to write, stuff like that to do. Why cram it all into the last week, you know? So I hope you've looked at this. You said, what, Eisenman, why don't you just quit now? That's enough work in this class. Yeah, I agree, but you know, we got another period or two. You know, each of these periods is a whole week of class in a normal daytime listening class. So, you know, we've really got 3 class periods here left, in effect. What's left today, and not a whole period, obviously, but somewhat of a period, and then the last period, and so on. So I don't believe in quitting. I want to shortchange you. So The Chosen, my students, funnily enough, tell me that they really like this book, one of the best of the things that we do, which is surprising to me because it's not a great novel particularly. But there's something touching about it, I think. And this is a novel. It's not a religious work, but since we're doing religious, ethnic, and diversity type things, this is a Hasidic Jewish novel. You say, well, how many people could be interested in Hasidic Judaism? Well, probably say not very many. And yet the classes I find, whatever people's backgrounds are, like this book. Why do they like this book? I've questioned myself and tried to answer the question. I think I know why they like this book. They like this book because of the tenderness in this book. There is a real, in, for instance, James Baldwin's Fire Next Time and relations with family that he discusses. You don't have tenderness there at all. There's a lot of anger, some violence and things like that. There's no anger here. There's anger between different people in the book, but not in the families. And there's just tenderness and gentleness. And the weird thing is, once again, it's tenderness between fathers and sons. We all know that mothers and children are daughters and sons and their mothers. Particularly it seems sons like their mothers for some reason. Daughters may be more at odds. Some are companions to their mothers, some are at odds with their mothers. In any case, we know that mothers and sons and daughters love each other, etc., etc., etc. Just turn on any sports event when the TV camera gets on the athlete, they always say, "Hi mom, hi mom, hi mom." It's always the case. "Hi mom." But you never hear them say, "Hi dad." Maybe Tiger Woods used to say that or someone like that. But aside from Tiger Woods, you hardly ever hear a single one of them say such a thing. Shaquille O'Neal does a little bit to his stepfather. But, you know, mostly it's "Hi mom, hi mom, hi mom." This is about the love of fathers and sons. And that's a fairly rare theme in any book, in any literature. And I think that people who come from family environments who don't know this are really struck by it, I think. It's a new world for them, and it is quite moving, I think, and so they get into it. So I think that's the power of this book, actually. That's what does it, aside from illustrating an actual different culture than what you're used to. So, what is the culture we're talking about here? See, I've got my trusty pen with me here. Got through D.H. Lawrence fast as lightning, faster than I thought we would. And there are different ways to spell Hasidism. I like two S's, some just spell it with one S. It's a Hebrew word, so it's not really an English word. I don't know. I guess he spells it in the book with one S, probably. You can spell it however you like. You say, I said, not many people would be interested. Well, one person who's interested in this kind of thing is Madonna, for instance. I mean, her interest mainly focuses on the Zohar, which is one of the books of Jewish mysticism. And she thinks she's the sort of princess of the Zohar, that she can interpret these things better than anyone else. I actually had the fortune or misfortune to have lunch with Madonna once in London a couple of years back because of some of the books of mine that became famous. And she and her husband were interested in them and stuff like that. And I was late. It was in London. I got stuck in traffic, and she was all peeved because no one is late for her lunches. You know, I didn't really want to be late. But I got there, and she was already in her gym clothes or exercise clothes, sort of warming up, getting ready to go wherever she was going to go exercise. And, you know, she didn't have much time to sit and chat and so on, even though the meal was already half eaten, etc. Because the traffic in central London is very difficult. In a taxi I was on, I couldn't get anywhere. So I was a good half hour late. And so I think it was really funny. So she's telling me about this work of what she's interested in, Kabbalah, which is what a lot of the Hasidim are interested in. That's one of the works of Kabbalah. I mean, it's the Jewish mystical tradition to receive. It's the received tradition. So I was saying, well, I don't know, we're talking about Kabbalah, and so I said, well, I thought Kabbalah was the tradition of Jewish mysticism. And she said to me, no! Kabbalah is anything I say it is. Oh, really? That was about the end of our conversation. Our conversation just ended there. In other words, whatever she said it was, that's what it was. But anyway. So there are people who are interested in that. I don't know if you see people who have the red strings around their wrist these days and stuff like that. Some of these symbols of some of these things. That's not quite the Hasidim here, but they are another branch of movements that are interested in these kinds of esoteric Jewish mystical phenomena. He describes the birth of Hasidism in this book. So he not only gives you a novel, but he actually gives you information as he goes along. Now, there's a movie of this particular book. I'm sure you can get it in the tape stores. It's actually a pretty good movie, in fact. Not as good as the book, but if you can't read, I guess it'll do. So if you're just unable to read, go look at the movie anyway, if you can't read. But I think reading the book would be better for you, if the movie can't give you the real flavor. It can just tell you the plot. And part of the book here is the discussions that take place and the different information that's given to you in different sections of it that really is edifying. So this book clearly is autobiographical. It was written by this gentleman by the name, you see, he died last year, I think. Anyway, the period it deals with is the period around World War II. And in fact, the battles of World War II of the American Army in Europe and the Pacific are taking place right during the action of this book. And then it moves on towards the end of the book, towards the discovery of the Holocaust, of the fact that millions upon millions, despite what our friend Mel Gibson has to say, millions upon millions of Jews in Europe were murdered systematically in the most horrendous way you could possibly imagine. Maybe 1 million children thrown into gas chambers on top of their parents. And even though the war was ending, we were discussing it in one of our classes the other day, some of the people in the room here, even though the war was ending, they were not going to hold back from rounding up the people, for instance, in Hungary. And they took 200,000 people out in like a few weeks' time in the end of 1944 when the war was all over, really. And, because the Hungarian government fell and the Germans could take over. Italy, too. The Italian government under Mussolini wouldn't let them take Italian Jews out, but when the Americans invaded and the Italian government fell, then the Germans took over, and then they started shipping them out. And there's some famous books about Italian a few survived the concentration camps, many didn't. You go to cities in northern Italy, you'll see the names on plaques and places of people who didn't come back from the camps and so on. So, when the news from this was coming to America, he shows the effect of it on these people here in Brooklyn, who are living in Brooklyn. And then the background shifts to the whole struggle for Zionism and the founding of a Jewish state in Palestine. And that's the rest of the historical background of this book. So it's from World War II. So it's basically from around 1944 to about 1948. That's what the historical background is. And it's pretty autobiographical. So, but the interesting thing is the way he writes it. So let's look at the book if we can. And it starts with, he does do Hasid with one S, by the way, as I see here. It starts with, of all things, what? A baseball game. And that's, you don't usually picture these people playing baseball. So, it talks about Danny in chapter 1. Danny and I. The narrator is on. Danny is one Hasidic sect. And they came from Poland, a lot of them. Danny's sect comes from southern Poland, he says. They speak Yiddish. What's Yiddish? Yiddish is in Russia, the word Jew was pronounced like that. In German, it's Juden. In Russian, it becomes Yid, and so on. There are different words move from culture to culture in different ways. In any case, let me pull these trousers up. That the belt never keeps up from this expensive Italian belt that I have that doesn't have any loopholes in it. You're supposed to be able to put the hook through the actual material of the belt, but nothing ever seems to work in these belts. So why do you wear them? Oh, because they're expensive and fancy, so I thought I should wear them. Any case, so what's the narrator's name? Danny is basically originally his opponent, but ultimately he becomes his friend. What's the narrator's name? Reuben. So it's a story of Reuben. I think his last name is Moll. And Danny. What's Danny's last name? I'm not sure. Well, we'll come to it, won't we? Huh? Let's see. Well, if you can, I see you guys haven't read this either, huh? God, you do a lot of work in this world, you guys. I have to work for you. Anyway, we'll come upon his last name pretty quickly. Danny's father is a famous rabbi. But since these are not normal Jews, this is a Jewish sect, like something like the Amish in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, or the other spin-offs of the Amish. You say, well, what are the Amish? The Amish are these people who go around in black costumes from the 16th, 17th century, sects from Europe. So these people too wear black all the time, and we have them here in Long Beach. If you've ever been up on Long Beach Boulevard, Atlantic Avenue, you'll see them there. They have a center there. These are one special kind of Hasidim. Anyway, most of them came from different towns in Poland, and they followed a leader who was called, and we see it on the first page, the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov. This couldn't be more different than Wrong for a Night is Dead. The Baal Shem Tov. Shem in Hebrew means, God, you guys must think I'm a linguist or something. I know all these languages, German, Italian, French, Hebrew, you know. I just know a smattering, believe me, I don't know them all. But I know little bits of them enough to translate these kinds of things. Baal means master, like the Baals in the Bible, the gods, the pagan gods. But it actually means master. Shem in Hebrew is name. Tov in Hebrew is good. The master of the good name. In other words, a kind of magic person, something like Jesus. A Rebbe, and this is not a real rabbi, but these people were called Rebbes. Sort of a variation on rabbi, and it meant a kind of a leader of a cultic group who followed this Baal Shem Tov, a kind of Jesus-like miracle worker from the 1700s in Poland. Each of these groups, depending on what town they came from, had their own rabbi, as he's saying, in their own little synagogue. The part of Brooklyn that they lived in, and they still live there, was called Williamsburg. And there were houses here, and this is where the information he gives you. I think it's on page 10. Jews, Irish, Germans, Spanish Civil War refugees, and so on. Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews, and no modern Jews, what we call Reform or conservative ones. And this area in Williamsburg was called Crown Heights. It's still there. You could go to it now, and it's not much different. And they each went to two different schools. This boy, Reuben, and this Danny. Now the weird thing about Reuben is he's not a Hasid. Danny is the Hasid. Reuben is just what we call an Orthodox Jew. Orthodox Jew. That's just a normal, sort of very religious Jew. But the Hasidic Jews were ultra-Orthodox. Plus they followed a charismatic leader they called the Rebbe. And Danny is the son of the Rebbe of his particular group from this town in Poland that he'll tell you more about. So they were going to have a softball game, and it's on page 11. The 15 members on a Sunday afternoon in early June of my team met with our gym instructor, a man named Mr. Gallanter. You see it at the bottom of that page. And he explains what the game is going to be like. I'm hoping we have the same page numbers, because these things come out. I have a different page number marked here, so I'm afraid we may have different page numbers. Is this your page 6? It's my page 12. This is because we've had this book over several printings. And what page is this in your book? We batted and threw the ball around. Is that page 6 or page 12?
12.
Some of you have 6, some of you have 12. That's the problem. But anyway, you can follow this here. So this other team comes out, and this is portrayed in the movie quite well. And they're warming up here. Reuben has glasses. I guess he's, they pronounce it Reuven, R-E-U-V-E-N, because B's in English are V's in Hebrew. And they're joshing back and forth. Oh, that's Danny's name. He's the son of Reb Saunders. So he's Danny Saunders. And they're laughing and throwing the ball back and forth. They're laughing at Reuben's glasses. And they're laughing at this Rebbe. Reb Sanders ordered them never to lose because it would be a shame their yeshiva. Yeshiva is a place where the actual word means to sit down, where you sit down and study. It's a synagogue study center. So you sit down, and Yoshev in Hebrew means to sit down. So you sit down and you study. And that's all you do. And you don't think of these people as being able to play baseball, but they are actually ultimately enthusiasts for some of these things. So they're laughing and kidding because these kids are less religious than the other kids. They're all religious, but the one group is less religious than the other group. And they're laughing. He ordered them never to lose because we shamed their yeshiva. And I grinned at him, yeah, holy war, ha ha ha, you know. It's good, it's good banter, and it's portrayed that way. And, hey, Galactor shouted, don't talk like that, that's the coach. There's a war on, remember. You know, you can't just talk about war lightning. And then they came into the yard, the other team. This is on page 14. I guess it's on your page 8 or something. Yeah, I better write it down because otherwise I don't have it down here. There were 15 of them. And they were dressed. See, this is a great podium. Without this podium, I'd be dead. I can lean forward, and it doesn't break, you see. Yeah, flip it. You know, whoops, there we go. I'm like Danny here. I'm losing my, like Ruben, losing my glasses. Okay, so this is page 8 in your book. And I give it back because otherwise I'll run off with it. I don't want to do that. I always run off with people's pens. Thanks a lot. So there were 15 of them, all dressed alike. In white shirts, dark pants, white sweaters, small black skull caps. What's the word for them people usually use? Yarmulke, they call them. But in Israel today, they just call them kippahs, little round things covering their head. In the fashion of the very Orthodox, their hair was closely cropped and they had side curls. They have short hair and side curls. It's from a biblical injunction, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes, or something like that. That you let the curls of your hair don't cut them. I don't know where they get this idea, and you know, they see it in some biblical commandment. And they wore tzitzit. T-Z-I-T-Z-I-T. They wore tzitzit. Let's see, it is T-Z-I-T-Z-I-T. Tzitzit. What are tzitzit? Fringes. Fringes underneath their clothes. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but they have fringes. It's also a biblical commandment that you should have fringes on your clothing. It's in Deuteronomy or Leviticus or one of those books. I'm sure you could Google it up and you'll find it immediately. So they had tzitzit on. And he gives the biblical commandment here. And ye shall look upon it, which pertains to the fringes, the four corners of the garments, swung against their pants. They were very orthodox. But still they had, we used to call in those days, Levi's were called dungarees. Levi's is a brand name for a kind of dungaree, but they used to call them dungarees back in that time. And now everything is called Levi's, whether it's a Levi or it isn't a Levi. I mean, you can have another company and it's still Levi's. That's, that's pretty imprecise. So they wore, if you like, Levi's short pants, polo shirts, sweatshirts, etc. But none of us wore fringes outside his trousers. Anyway, so I think the game begins. Well, I think first they play the practice a bit, and so on and so forth, and they want to practice on the field. There's a little ill feeling develops, and they were hitting grounders over the next few minutes, and they had to watch them doing it, and one team's on the side. And so you get this discussion here. You see, he said, as he bent to retrieve the ball. Sure, I said, especially the one batting. You'll see, the ball was coming back to me and I caught it neatly and flipped it back. Who's that one batting? That's Danny Sanders. But, pardon my ignorance, I said, but who's Danny Sanders? Reb Sanders' son. You should know, you should know who he is, Reb Sanders. He's the big sort of leader of this group. So he describes what Danny looks like. He was a good deal taller than I. He was somewhat ordinary, with decently proportioned features. His chin, jaw, and cheekbones were made up of jutting hard lines. He's very handsome, in other words. You know how when you're young, one person stands out in the schoolyard and can do everything better than everyone else and seems more intelligent and more athletic? That's what this Danny Sanders was like. And Reuben is like a little sort of jerk. I mean, he's not a total jerk. He's got a very intelligent father, and he's quite well educated, but he's still nothing like Dan. So as this game progresses, page 21, probably around 15 in your book, I don't know, Mr. Galanter seems to be not only the coach, but the referee. He says, play ball, and so on and so forth. And they start talking about how the game goes on. And they start teasing each other. And finally, for some reason, they bring in Reuben to pitch. Danny Sanders was standing on my base. His white, well, I guess he's not pitching yet. His white shirt, it's your page 18. His white shirt was pasted to his arms. That was a nice shot I offered. I guess he got a double. You always hit like that to the pitcher, I asked. He smiled faintly. You're Reuben Malter, he said in perfect English. That's right, I said. Your father is David Malter, the one who writes articles. He's a scholarly person on the Talmud. Talmud is a religious book. I told my team we're going to kill you a pluralism this afternoon. And I looked at him and I said, sure, I said, rub your tzitzit for good luck. So he's mocking him. So here is a word. I'm not going to keep you much longer, don't worry. Apikorism. So he's heard about Danny. And he's heard about Reuben and his father, who he doesn't really approve of the articles. His father doesn't approve of the articles that Reuben's father writes, so they kid each other back and forth. He calls him an epicurism. You know what that word comes from, epicurism? Weird. It's the Greek word Epicurean, someone who loves beauty, art, intellectual things, and so on. Being a person who has fine taste, you call them an Epicurean. The Hasidic boy is calling the Orthodox boy an Epicurean. That's an insult. As if the Orthodox boy has nothing to do with Epicureanism. But that's how they saw the world in those terms, epicurism, and so on and so forth. Well, let me hurry up. They go on and talking some more about it. It's a pretty long first scene. And I really don't probably have time to go through it all, and I can see you all want to go home, but let's just get to the point where Danny hits the ball, and what happens to Reuben?
Takes him here.
Well, he hits him right in his glasses after the pitch. Reuben is pitched, and Danny hits the ball, a line drive, and smashes Reuben. Can't get his glove up fast enough, and he hits it in the eye, breaks his glasses, and the glass goes into his eye. He's knocked out, and he's taken to the hospital. And Reuben thinks what? That Danny is so clever, he's so impressed with Danny, and so athletic, that he thinks he's done it on purpose. Again, for instance, I'll just go through this and I'll let you go on page, we don't have the same pages here, my 25. You should see his father, he's one of Reb Sanders, and he goes on like that. And then another guy on the next page says, "Been rubbing your sit," and they're laughing at each other, and this kind of thing. And he goes on to explain epicurism about 3 pages from the end of the chapter. You see? What page is that in your book? The word meant originally a Jew educated in Judaism who denied the basic tenets of the faith, but that's not what it comes from. It comes from the Greek. Oh, you're page 23. I was an epicurism to Danny Saunders. I explained all that to you. Well, let me see if we can get where he hits him in the face here, and we'll let you go home. I stood in the pitcher's position, 2 pages further along. Here's a present from an epicurism, I thought, and let go a ball. 2 pages from the end. I saw Danny's left foot move out. He swung just as the ball slid into its curve, and the bat cut savagely through the empty air, twisting him around, sending him off balance. His skull cap fell out of his head. Anyway, so it's a pretty good description of baseball. And he's 20, I guess this is 29. He stood looking at me over his left shoulder waiting. And I realized that he had anticipated the curve. I was still a little off balance from the pitch, but I managed to bring my glove hand up in front of my face as he hit the ball. I saw it coming at me, and there was nothing I could do. It hit the finger section of my glove, deflected, smashed into the upper rim of my left lens of my glasses, glanced off my forehead, and knocked me down. My glasses lay shattered on the asphalt. I felt a sharp pain in my eye, and that's the end of the first chapter, which leads into the relationship of Danny and Reuben. See you next time. Thanks for bearing with me. We'll finish this book next time. Talk about the final camp too. Sorry to keep you, but this is the way it should be. Yes, go ahead. Is there a sign-up sheet here for those who